Perhaps you have once asked yourself, what did I do wrong? Why does everything get worse the more I try to be kind? You stay silent when you are insulted. You stay gentle when you are attacked. You apologize for things you did not cause. You choose patience. You choose to be the bigger person because you believe it will keep the relationship from falling apart. But there is one thing no one ever told you. In a relationship with a narcissist, your kindness is never understood as goodness. It is understood as surrender. They do not see your considerate heart. They only see someone who can be easily bent. And so, every time you step back to keep the peace, they step forward to reinforce their control. You think you are saving the relationship. In reality, you are slowly losing yourself. I know you are exhausted to the point you no longer recognize who you have become in this story. You are no longer the joyful, radiant person you once were. You have grown quiet, vigilant, tense always, waiting for the moment their face changes. You live in a half-awake, half-numb state, trying to hold on to peace by suffocating your own feelings, only to lie awake at night wondering why loving someone could hurt this much. But let me say this clearly, and slowly. You are not wrong. You are not weak. You are not too sensitive. You simply brought your heart into a place where goodness is turned into a weapon against you. And the truth you have avoided for so long is this: being the better person will never save you from someone who has no capacity to understand love. On the contrary, it keeps you trapped in their cycle of abuse. Today, we will talk about the one thing you have tried not to face. It is time for you to stop being the noble one and learn how to be the one with boundaries. From the very moment you met them, you believed you had finally found someone who truly understood you. They looked directly at you with eyes that made you feel seen, chosen, cherished. They listened to every word you said, remembered every small detail you shared, and spoke to you in ways no one ever had. You felt safe in a way you could not explain, but what you did not know was that this was only the first step in a manipulation process psychologists call love bombing, a strategy described in the research of Dr. Donald Dutton, creating an emotional bond so rapidly that the victim cannot distinguish what is genuine from what is calculated. In that stage, they are not loving you, they are studying you. They observe your emotional reactions, memorize your childhood wounds, learn your love language, and adjust their behavior to match exactly what you long for most. Dr. W. Keith Campbell, a leading researcher on narcissism, calls this the mirroring phase, a period when the narcissist temporarily becomes the ideal partner you have always wished for, because doing so allows them to earn your trust without ever needing real empathy. When that phase ends, you start to see the first cracks: sudden coldness, small but sharp criticisms, unexplained silent treatment, subtle tests to see how far they can push you and how much you will tolerate. And as an instinct deeply wired into you, you try to become even kinder, calmer, more patient, hoping to bring back the wonderful version of them you once knew. But here is the painful truth that almost every victim learns through blood and tears. The very qualities that make you a remarkable partner, compassion, patience, the ability to see the good in others, are the same qualities that make you an easy target for a narcissist. Because in their psychological structure, kindness does not carry moral meaning, it carries power. When you hold back to keep the peace, they interpret it as submission. When you forgive to save the relationship, they view it as permission. When you stay silent to avoid being hurt, they see weakness. As research by Dr. Erica Hepper has shown, narcissists interpret a partner's humility as confirmation of their own superiority, not as an invitation to grow together. This is why every time you attempt to be the better person, you are unconsciously teaching them that you can be pushed even further without resisting. They do not see your heart. They only see your breaking point. And from that moment, the power game begins. A game you do not know you are playing, yet you are losing a little more each day. When you live in a relationship where you repeatedly have to let things go, pretend nothing happened, don't make a big deal out of it, your nervous system does not let anything go. It records every detail, every wound, every contemptuous glance, every sentence that knocks the air out of your lungs, and it responds exactly as it is programmed to protect you. Except in a narcissistic environment, that response does not save you. It slowly destroys you from the inside. Every time they yell and you stay silent, every time they belittle you and you pretend not to feel it, every time they break your heart and you convince yourself it's fine. Your nervous system is pushed into a state of hypervigilance, heightened alertness, where your body is constantly preparing for danger. You smile on the outside, but inside, your heart rate spikes. You say, "I'm fine," but your stomach contracts. You say, "I'm okay," but your neck tightens, your back heats up, your hands turn cold. The nervous system does not listen to the words you speak. It only listens to the signals of the environment, and your environment is sending the same message over and over again. You are not safe, and this is what outsiders never understand. Psychological abuse does not need a blow, it needs time. It needs to place your body in a low-grade but continuous state of alarm, a condition neuroscientist Dr. Stephen Porges calls chronic sympathetic activation, meaning the sympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for fight or flight responses, is activated without pause, never returning to rest. This does not make you stronger, it makes you depleted. When the body continuously senses danger but cannot act, you cannot run, and you cannot fight, it shifts into a third response: freeze or fawn. Freeze is paralysis. Fawn is appease to avoid attack. You think you are avoiding conflict, but in reality, your nervous system is desperately trying to survive an unwinnable environment. And when you endure for the sake of peace, it is not just your psychology bearing the weight, your biology is entering the danger zone. Cortisol, the stress hormone, rises far beyond normal levels, and if this persists for weeks, months, or even years, your body begins to pay the price. Sleep disturbances, headaches, poor concentration, muscle tension, immune dysregulation, digestive problems, chronic exhaustion. You think you are tired because you do not sleep enough. The truth is, you are tired because your nervous system is not allowed to sleep. It refuses to rest, believing an attack could come at any moment, especially from the person you love most. And the cruelest part is this: the more you ignore the abuse, the harder your body must work to keep you upright. You do not understand why one comment from them can make your hands shake. You do not understand why a message saying "we need to talk" makes your stomach ache. You do not understand why some days you want to cry for no clear reason. This is not weakness. This is a nervous system stretched beyond its limit, deprived of soothing for far too long, forced to protect you in silence more than any human body should ever have to. And the more you ignore it, the more you lose your ability to perceive real danger. You go numb. You normalize discomfort. You normalize fear. You normalize shallow breathing, swallowing your words, silencing your body every time it wants to scream. This is not love. But the body is always honest. It always tells the truth your mind tries to deny through rapid heartbeat, tight chest, unexplained back pain, the kind of exhaustion that no amount of sleep can cure. And when you continue to ignore the abuse, your nervous system eventually starts to believe this is the new normal. It no longer seeks escape, it only seeks survival. That is when you find yourself lost, unable to feel clearly, unable to speak your truth, unable to distinguish love from fear. Because when the nervous system is trapped in the loop of abuse, it cannot categorize that person as lover or threat. It merges the two into one, and in that moment you lose yourself, not because you are weak, but because your body has lived too long in a battlefield you kept calling home. That is why every time you say, "I'll let it go for the sake of peace," your body whispers a different truth: "I'm hurting myself." And it will keep whispering through pain, through anxiety, through exhaustion, until you finally listen to it, or until it can no longer protect you. There is one thing that nearly all victims of narcissistic relationships experience, yet very few truly understand. The longer you stay, the more you lose the ability to leave, not because you do not want to, but because your psychological system gradually becomes conditioned to believe that leaving is pointless. This is not weakness. It is the psychological phenomenon researcher Martin Seligman called learned helplessness, a state of helplessness that is learned. It happens when you try again and again to change something or to protect yourself, but every attempt is shut down, punished, or ends in failure. Little by little, you stop believing you have choices. To understand this more clearly, look back at what happened. In the beginning, you had hope, you had a voice, you had needs. But every time you expressed genuine emotion, they became angry. Every time you set even a small boundary, they punished you with silence. Every time you shared your sadness or hurt, they told you that you were too sensitive, too selfish, too dramatic. And every time you tried to walk away from an argument, they pulled you back with anger, guilt, or perfectly timed sweetness. These repeated reactions taught your nervous system a hidden lesson. The more I fight, the worse everything becomes. So you shrink. You speak less. You ask for less. You react less. You live quietly in the role of the submissive partner, not because you want to, but because your brain believes it is the only way to avoid pain. And from that point on, every time you think about leaving, changing, or saying no, the first feeling that arises is not hope but fear. Not fear of them, but fear of what will happen afterward. You fear their anger. You fear the long silences. You fear being blamed. You fear being called ungrateful. You fear the guilt they are so skilled at planting in you. And sometimes your greatest fear is not what they will do, but what they will not do, that they will turn away, become cold, and make you feel once again that you are not enough, not worthy, not lovable. It's Decode in beta. To avoid that feeling of abandonment, you learn to stay still. You tell yourself, just tolerate a little more so the house stays peaceful. Maybe tomorrow they'll calm down. Maybe if I change, things will get better. But you do not realize that this is not your logic speaking. It is learned helplessness. It convinces you that no matter what you do, the result will be the same. No matter what you say, they will react the same way. No matter how you try to change, you will be pulled back into the same cycle. And so you stop making decisions based on truth. You make them based on fear. The longer you stay, the more fear becomes your compass. The longer you stay, the more you lose the ability to believe you can live without them. The longer you stay, the more you believe you must adapt instead of leave. And this mental exhaustion steals from you the most important thing of all, the belief that you deserve another life. Here is something many victims never say out loud. They have grown so accustomed to chaos that, when it disappears, they feel empty. Not because they enjoy being hurt, but because their bodies have adapted to constant tension so deeply that peace feels foreign. And that is the deepest tragedy of learned helplessness. It does not just take away your ability to leave. It takes away your ability to imagine a life without pain. You do not stay because you cannot leave. You stay because you have lived so long in a distorted world that you no longer remember what it feels like to have a choice. And when a person forgets they have choices, they will remain, even in a burning room, simply because the door has not been opened in so long. At a certain point, no matter how much you endure, justify, or blame yourself, your body and mind begin to send signals you can no longer ignore, signals of awakening. The first sign is not strength, but profound exhaustion, the kind of weariness where even their half-hearted apologies or occasional tender moments no longer convince you that change is coming. Before, the smallest gesture could make you hope again. But now, you see the repetition. Every apology leads to the same ending. The repetition becomes dull, and when pain starts to become dull, that is the first sign you are waking up. The second sign appears in deeply private moments. One morning you wake up and realize you no longer feel excitement seeing their name on your phone, or you are talking to them and suddenly feel as if you are listening to a stranger. You no longer translate their words in your head, you simply hear them and feel empty. This emptiness is not loss of love, It is the withdrawal of the neural connections your body once used to maintain attachment. It is the moment your nervous system begins to reclassify the relationship from the person I must appease to feel loved, to a source of continuous pain. Mandada. The third sign comes when you begin remembering the older versions of yourself, the versions you lost quietly over time. You realize you used to laugh more freely, feel more confident, carry clearer dreams. When the image of who you used to be becomes vivid again, an unconscious comparison forms between past and present, and the comparison stuns you. How much of yourself disappeared just to maintain peace with someone who never wanted peace? The fourth sign is a shift in how you respond to their subtle attacks. If before you panicked, rushed to explain, or tried to soothe them, now you find yourself not wanting to respond at all. You no longer have the energy to justify, no longer feel the need to protect your image in their eyes, no longer hope they will understand you. This is not defeat. This is the withdrawal of the power they once held. When you no longer need their validation, their grip begins to weaken. The fifth and clearest sign is when you begin imagining a different life without them. At first, it is only a blurry picture, a quiet room, an evening without shouting, a day where you can breathe without guessing their mood. You think of it and quickly shut it down out of fear, guilt, or doubt about whether you can do it. But the thought returns, clearer each time, more real each time. That is the moment the seed of freedom is planted. No one leaves a narcissistic relationship with strength at the start. You leave through a series of realizations, realizing you are slowly dying inside your own life, realizing you no longer want to live that way, and most of all, realizing that another life is possible. True awakening does not begin the day you pack your bags. It begins the day you start removing them from your mind. And if even a small part of these signs has appeared in you, even for a moment, understand this. It is not a betrayal of love. It is your body whispering that you deserve a life where you do not have to shrink yourself every single day just to survive. When you begin waking up from the relationship, when you no longer react the way you once did, when your eyes change and the fear inside you begins to fade, the narcissist will sense it before you do. Make no mistake. They feel your shift almost instinctively, because their entire inner world depends on their ability to control your emotional responses. When you are no longer triggered by the old attacks, they experience it as their supply being drained little by little, and that is when they begin reacting in very predictable ways. At first comes a subtle confusion. They notice that you no longer scramble to apologize when they pout, no longer rush to explain yourself when they twist your words, no longer look at them with the frightened eyes you once had. It is precisely your calmness that unsettles them, because in their psychology, when the victim is no longer controllable, it means their power is slipping. After this confusion, they try familiar tactics to test the level of control, stirring up arguments for no reason, provoking you to react, applying emotional pressure, or suddenly going silent to see if you panic. They do not do this because they need you. They do it because they need to feel that you still belong to them. If you react, they exhale in relief. If you do not react, their fear begins. The next stage is escalation. They start blowing small issues out of proportion, exaggerating your mistakes, even fabricating stories to activate your guilt. They need you to tremble again, need you to feel insecure, need you to believe that you cannot live without them. Because as you awaken, you become a direct threat to their ego, an ego built entirely on your submission. If the negative attacks do not pull you back, they switch strategies, suddenly becoming kind. They will return to the original perfect version, attentive, gentle, even remorseful, not because they want to change, but because they know you once loved that version. They use your past against you, the way an addict returns to the first dose to keep you hooked. This is the most dangerous tactic, because it confuses you. You no longer know which version is real. But you must understand, kindness that appears right when they are about to lose you is not love. It is their survival mechanism. They do not want to lose you because they love you. They do not want to lose you because no one else provides emotional reactions to them as effectively as you. If these soft manipulation attempts still fail, they may shift into destruction, smearing your name, lying about you, creating narratives that you are unstable, difficult, unreasonable. Not because they truly believe these things, but because they must protect their ego at all costs. A narcissist will do anything to ensure no one discovers that you left because you were awake, strong, and no longer afraid. And if all these tactics fail, they use their final card, becoming the victim. They will cry, or appear devastated, or say they cannot live without you, that you are the only one who understands them. This is not real hurt. It is a desperate attempt to keep you in the savior role you have carried for far too long. The most important thing you must understand is this. When you begin to awaken, the narcissist's reactions do not reveal their love for you. They reveal how much they need you to maintain their illusion of themselves. The stronger you become, the more terrified they grow. The quieter you become, the more frantic they become. The calmer you become, the more they feel as though they are dying on the inside. Not because you took away their love, but because you took away the only mirror that reflected the grandiose image they depended on. And when someone can no longer rely on you to sustain their ego, they will never forgive you for it. But the most beautiful truth is this. The very moment they lose control is the moment you reclaim yourself. And when you look back at the entire journey you have lived through, from the very first moment you were drawn in by their manufactured warmth, to the long nights spent wondering why you no longer recognized yourself, and then to the instant your heart finally began to awaken and understand that real love never requires you to shrink, you will realize that what you had been searching for all along was not their transformation, but your own return to life. Not their validation, but the restoration of the inner voice you had been forced to silence for far too long. You were not born to become a mirror reflecting the distorted ego of someone who refuses to face the truth. You were not born to live in fear disguised as love. And you were not born to sacrifice yourself just to keep someone else less chaotic. The truth is this. The moment you begin choosing peace over chaos, truth over empty promises, boundaries over endurance, you step out of the role of the victim. You become the person who stands on the side of your own life. And the most beautiful part is, you do not need their apology to heal. You do not need their acknowledgement to be free. Freedom begins the moment you say to yourself, not to them, I deserve another kind of life. One died with caste. Freedom begins when you stop trying to hold on to what hurts you. And then one day, you will realize that what you believed was love was actually a trap, one that made you forget your true worth. Once you see that clearly, every chain falls away on its own. Because in the end, victory is not getting the narcissist to change. Victory is having the clarity to walk away from the script in which they gave you only one role, the one who endures. This is the moment you begin writing your own story again, no longer shaped by fear, but by the truth that you were never weak. You were simply never placed in a world where your strength was allowed to bloom. And when you step through that door, even with just one small step, you will feel the one thing they never wanted you to feel. You are free.